Alright, we'll continue then with the mesh, the base mesh. In this case, I'll modify the hand. I've noticed the arm is a bit off, backwards. Over here is where it should be, here. Sometimes we'll have to rotate the view since the mesh might not be transparent enough. Or even sometimes it's too much. So by rotating the view, we can have a clear image of what's going on. So for us to rotate it, what we first have to do is to disable front. And next, I'll create a mask using Control and holding click on the mesh. This lets me create a mask, or well, lets me select the arm, we could say. And I hit Control click outside the mesh to invert the mask. So now the arm is what I can modify. I hit Control click on the mesh in order to smooth the mask effect on this portion and this portion. Now I'll enable move, and let's set the gizmo from this portion at the beginning of the humerus up to the end of the hand. Rotate the view, and now we can enable front in order to make the mesh transparent. In order to move, In order to move it, I do it from the outer circumference. The one in the middle actually applies modifications. If I move it from the circle, I would be just modifying the location where I want to place this helper, or gizmo we could call it, gizmo coming from 3D Max. I'll click and drag from here to move it a bit forward. So notice we've got the biceps over here, this portion over here. We should rotate it a bit, but it should be from the forearm. So what I can do is, let's get this down a bit from the front view. These deformations here don't really matter. And now, I'll select another brush, and by hitting Control, I'll select part of the arm this time, so it doesn't move. Since what I want to move is the forearm. Now from the back, hold Control, add this to the mask, Control click on the mesh. I'll disable front in order to see the mesh properly. Control click on the mesh. Okay, Control click. Notice over here we've made a mistake. This was caused because when I created the mask, I selected a portion over here. Let's see. You see? What I've done was to invert the mask. Hit Control and notice there were some portions I didn't select. We really had to fix that before moving on. Alright, Control click, I invert the mask, and repeat the process. Move it forward. Now it behaves as expected. Front for transparency. Over there. I like it there. And from the front view, over here. And now, let's select a normal brush. Control, and add this portion to the mask. And I'd like to disable front. Be careful, by pressing Control, we invert the mask. And what I'm doing is to click on the mesh to smooth it, and pressing Control click outside for inverting the mask and make the selection easier. But the forearm is too short now. I'll enable move, click to start on the joint, and create a new helper. Let's move this outer ring a bit. This is just for making the use of the helper easier. Drag from this ring and leave it over here. Doesn't matter if the hand is scaled. We'll modify it later on. Due to it's one of the most complex shapes, we'll work a lot on the hands. Especially since our need, different to our need at the beginning. At the beginning we were aiming just to make Batman standing, but in this case we need to make a Batman that we can close the hand, make the fists pose, so we'll have to model the fingers. By then we'll notice everything will change a bit. Alright, I'll disable front in order to check the mesh, and I'll move this mesh a bit. I don't know why in this case the mesh is not behaving as I was expecting. Let's see what happened. From the lateral view it did work. I'll deselect the mask, disable it, be careful with the mesh at the back. I always rotate the view in order to understand the shapes. For instance, over here the arm is way wider, also the shoulder. Sometimes it doesn't seem to be clear enough. Let's move this portion a bit backwards. The area of the biceps, the deltoid. I rotate several times in order to check what part I want to modify, if it is working or not. Alright. I think we're getting something useful for what we're doing. I do want to fix this portion of the arm. I didn't like it. Okay, move. I think the tablet is causing some of that odd behavior. I'll try using the mouse. It's like there is something wrong with the selection of the mesh. Well, I don't notice anything wrong. I don't really know why it is deforming like that. Sometimes I do, but others I don't. Let's adjust it a bit more. I think like that should be alright. As I previously told you, I won't spend long on this stage. I just wanted the mesh to look a bit closer to our character. We'll work on the hand, on the details, following all the reference needed. What I'll do is to make the fingers shorter. I think I finished now. If we want to leave the base mesh finished, we could retouch the hand but for the time being, it's not that important. We would be taking the decision depending on if that makes sense, but not for impulse. Alright, I think we've already got a mesh looking like the Batman we want to make. If we tell somebody we're modeling a superhero, it would be believable. Although the mesh hasn't really got details, but it does look like kind of a superhero. If you want, you can check the mesh quickly. If you want to retouch some shapes, it's fine. Alright, I'll see you then on the next class.